I've lived alone for about 3 years now, in a quiet little neighborhood on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. It's one of those areas where people leave their doors unlocked, where kids ride bikes till sunset, and everyone waves when they pass by. I used to love that about it, until last winter, because after what happened, I'll never feel safe in my own home again. It started with little things. I'd hear a soft thump from the attic at night, the kind that sounds like wood expanding or maybe a squirrel got in. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I began noticing things off. A half-empty bottle of orange juice left out that I didn't remember drinking. My phone charger moved to a different outlet. My keys, I always leave them on the hook by the door. One morning, they were in the kitchen sink. I told myself I was just tired. Work was stressful. I was probably forgetting things. But that explanation didn't hold for long. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to what sounded like someone walking across my living room floor. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the hardwood. I froze. I grabbed my phone, opened the flashlight app, and crept toward the sound. Nothing. Just my empty living room. That night, I ordered 2 small Wi-Fi cameras off Amazon. One for the living room, one for the hallway outside my bedroom. I figured if anything was actually happening, I'd catch it on camera. The first 2 nights, nothing happened. Just hours of silence and the occasional flicker of light when cars passed outside. But on the 3rd night, I woke up to a notification on my phone. Motion detected. 3:42 a.m. My heart started pounding as I opened the app. The feed showed my living room, empty at first. Then, about 5 seconds in, a shadow moved across the far wall. Not like a trick of the light. It was the silhouette of a person. You could see the outline of their shoulders, their head turning slowly, scanning the room. But the part that made my stomach drop was that the figure came out of the hallway closet. A closet I never use. The next morning I called in sick to work. I waited until daylight before I even went near that closet. Inside, everything looked normal. A vacuum, a couple of boxes, my winter coats. But when I pushed the coats aside, I noticed something odd. A small hole in the drywall at the back of the closet. It wasn't large, maybe the size of a football, but I could see darkness behind it. I got a flashlight and peered inside. There was a space, like a crawl area between the walls. Dusty, cramped, but big enough for a person to move through. My stomach turned. That space shouldn't even exist. My house isn't old enough for that kind of weird architecture. I called the police, of course. 2 officers came by, checked the crawl space with flashlights. They told me they didn't see anyone in there. No signs of forced entry. One of them even joked, "Maybe you've got ghosts." I laughed nervously, but my hands were shaking. Before they left, I asked them to check the attic too. They did. Nothing. I tried to convince myself it was over. But that night, the camera caught something again. This time, it wasn't just movement. Around 3:15 a.m., the video showed that same closet door slowly creak open. A pale hand reached out. Then a man stepped into the room. He looked filthy. His hair was greasy, face covered in dirt, clothes ripped like he'd been sleeping outside for weeks. But he hadn't been outside. He'd been living inside my walls. He walked over to my couch, sat down, and just watched the TV, which was turned off. He sat there for 10 full minutes, occasionally turning his head toward my bedroom hallway. Then he got up, went back to the closet, and disappeared inside it. That was the last straw. I grabbed my car keys, ran out the door barefoot, and called 911 from my driveway. The police came back with a K9 unit. They found him. He'd built a small nest in the crawl space. Blankets, food wrappers, even a portable charger plugged into my wall outlet. He'd been there for at least 3 weeks, sneaking out while I was at work, eating my food, watching me sleep through tiny holes he'd drilled in the drywall. The officer told me he was a drifter, someone who'd been squatting in vacant houses before. I moved out a month later. Now every time I hear a creak at night, I can't help but wonder, what if someone's still in the walls, waiting for me to fall asleep? I never thought I'd be the type of person who'd live through something like this. I've always been careful. Double locks, cameras, motion lights, everything. But in April of 2022, something happened that made me realize no security system can protect you when the person already knows everything about your life. And the worst part? He didn't break into my house. He walked in, like he belonged there. I'm a single guy in my late 20s, living just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I rent a small 2-bedroom house in a quiet cul-de-sac. Most of my neighbors are older couples, so it's usually peaceful. Every weekday I leave for work around 8:10 a.m., stop for coffee, and get home just after 6. My life is routine, painfully predictable. Or at least, that's what made it so easy for him. It started with tiny, unexplainable things. My shoes moved from the hallway to the living room. A cabinet slightly open when I swore I'd closed it. I even found my TV remote in the freezer one morning, and I laughed it off like, wow, I'm losing it. But the thing that really caught my attention was when I came home one night, and my front door was locked. From the inside. I have only one key, so unless someone locked it from within, that shouldn't have been possible. I told myself maybe the deadbolt jammed. I brushed it off. But that night, I swear I heard footsteps in my attic. Slow, careful footsteps, like someone trying not to be heard. The next day, I bought a couple of cheap security cameras from Walmart. I set one up in the hallway facing the living room, and another covering the back door. For a few days, nothing unusual, just normal clips of me leaving for work and coming home. But on Friday night around 2 a.m., I woke up to a notification. Motion detected, living room. Half asleep, I grabbed my phone to check the footage. The clip showed the living room empty for the first few seconds. Then, from the corner of the frame, I saw the shadow of a man's leg, stepping out from behind the couch. He stood there, completely still. Then, slowly walked toward the camera and turned it to face the wall. I don't think I've ever felt fear like that in my life. I called 911 immediately. The police came within minutes, checked every inch of the house. They didn't find anyone. No signs of forced entry, no broken locks. They told me it was probably an old clip glitching or someone tampering remotely with the camera app. I knew that wasn't true, because when I walked into my bedroom that night, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. On my nightstand, right beside my phone, was a half-drunk cup of coffee. The same brand, same mug I used every morning. Only, I hadn't made coffee that night. Over the next few days, I couldn't sleep. I started checking every corner, locking every window, twice. Then one morning, I decided to stay home from work, just to see what would happen if I broke my usual routine. I left my car in the driveway, lights off, blinds slightly open. I sat quietly in my bedroom, listening. Around 8:20 a.m., the exact time I normally leave, I heard the sound of my back door creaking open. Someone was inside my house. I grabbed my phone and peeked out of my room. There he was, a man in his 40s, wearing a brown hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder, walking straight to my kitchen like he'd done it 100 times before. He opened the fridge, took out orange juice, poured himself a glass, and sat at my table. Like he lived there. My body was trembling, but I stepped out quietly, holding my phone camera up. "Hey!" I yelled. He froze, glass halfway to his mouth. Then he smiled. "You're early," he said. My stomach dropped. "Who the hell are you?" I shouted. He stood up slowly, hands raised. "Relax, man. You said you were cool with me staying a few days." My mind was spinning. "What are you talking about?" His smile faded. "You really don't remember?" And that's when I realized he knew my entire routine, my habits, my coffee brand, because he'd been watching me for weeks. I ran outside, called 911 again, and waited in my car until the police arrived. They caught him that night, still inside my house. Turned out he was a contractor who'd worked on my basement a few months before. He'd made a copy of my key and had been living there part-time, sleeping in the storage crawl space under the stairs, coming out during the day while I was at work. He told police he liked pretending to have a normal life again. My house was just his illusion of normalcy. I moved out 3 weeks later, but sometimes when I wake up, I can almost hear the faint creak of that back door opening, like he's still keeping my schedule. If you think your routine keeps you safe, think again. Sometimes, routine is what makes you the easiest to find. Stay unpredictable, stay alert, and always check your crawl space. If this story made your heart race, just remember, the real fear might still be waiting for you. For more true horror stories like this, like the video, share it with someone who sleeps too easily, and subscribe if you're new here.